COVID hit, there were a lot of changes. And so some of those changes changed things for everybody. And some of those things changed things for people that had loans that didn't used to qualify. So there were a lot of changes. So why don't you walk us through some of the highlight reel changes that happened in the last year or two with student loans?
Yeah, so one of the big changes is that different kinds of loans that used to not qualify now do qualify for forgiveness. And so, what kind of loans? Usually, it's your FFEL loans. So, what are those? So nowadays, when folks go to med school and they're taking out a federal loan, they usually get a direct subsidized or a direct unsubsidized loan. But a few years ago, that wasn't the case. In fact, a few years ago, the federal government actually did not have federal loans. What happened was the federal government had private loans and they would back those private loans. And so those kinds of loans are your FFEL loans. And because they were technically private loans that were only backed by the federal government and they weren't direct federal loans, they did not qualify for these loan forgiveness programs.
Yeah. And so the FFEL is Federal Family Education Loan, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And so what would happen is a lot of folks who had these loans, because, 30 years ago, these were the only kind of loans that were really available. Folks had these loans. I said, hey, I've been working for an academic institution. I've made 10 years worth of payments. I want my loans forgiven. And then they would go, oh, sorry, you have the wrong loan type. And folks were not able to get their loans forgiven. And a lot of folks were really upset about this. They were like, what? This is not our fault. It's not like we chose the kind of loans that we got.
Yeah.
And so one of the big changes with the COVID waiver is that the FFEL loans now qualify. All you need to do is consolidate. So combine that FFEL loan into your other loans, and that loan will be called a direct consolidation loan. So once you get a direct consolidation loan, then you'll qualify. And so in case that sounded confusing, FFEL loan is a type of loan. You need to consolidate that into a direct loan. And once you do that with this waiver, it will now qualify for forgiveness.
And just so that we don't gloss over this, I literally have two friends that I practice with that are getting over $100,000 forgiven by the federal government because of this limited PSLF waiver that they changed just for these people, right? So if you're listening to this and it's your eyes are glazing over because we're talking about student loans, please don't let that happen, because if you graduated, about 8 or 10 years ago, there was a not strong, but there was a 4-year period, 5-year period where these types of loans were predominant. And so if you have those FFEL loans, go look at your loans and maybe, and the reason why this stuck around, there's probably people interested in how this happened. And because I have two friends that this is happening to, I know exactly what happened. So they basically, back then, the interest rates were so low that they would consolidate their debt, keep it federal, because their interest rates were like 2%. And so back then there wasn't this huge push to refinance your student loans with a private company like SoFi or Earnest or whoever. And the reason why was because you could consolidate with the federal government, keep the death benefit that if you die, it's forgiven. And it was like 2%. And so I have a couple of friends that have hung on to their debt for like 10 years because it's at 2%. They wanted to leverage their money in other places. And hilariously now, like these two attending anesthesiologists, like 10 years after residency are going to have more than $100,000 forgiven because of this new limited PSLF waiver. Start before you're ready. Start by starting. Start now.